continue to win on an agenda with no support. Let's check it out. Tonight, a live look at Hialeah, Florida tonight, where former President Trump is set to take the stage this hour. Kim Guilfoyle speaking right now. You're not going to miss a moment of the president's speech. We'll bring you there. But first, tonight, conservatives who watched last night's off-year...
You got to listen to this.
...pour in, got another jolt of the same disappointment they felt 1 year ago, watching the red wave collapse. The confusion is everywhere right now. Polls show most of the country hates the Democrat agenda, but the Democrats keep winning.
It doesn't make sense.
When nobody wants a party's policies, and yet that party still wins, obviously something is going on. And after last night, allegations made by many that the Democrat Party's largest fundraising platform, Act Blue, is filthy dirty, need a broader investigation. These allegations are nothing new. Earlier this year, Senator Marco Rubio sent a letter to the FEC citing reporting that numerous individuals, including senior citizens, have reportedly donated to Act Blue thousands of times a year. Many had no idea. An Election Watch investigation revealed one woman, who they dubbed Miss E, has donated 25,000 times to Act Blue. One woman, 25,000 times to a site that's only existed since 2004, which was about 7,000 days ago. So Miss E has donated to Act Blue 3 to 4 times every single day for the past 19 years, according to Act Blue.
That's nonsense.
Election Watch interviewed this woman. She had no idea.
Wow.
There were many more examples just like that. What's alleged...
How they letting them get away with it?
...stretch, of course, as Democrats have already perverted their democracy by buying elections in places that they clearly have no majority in, using Act Blue. Something that was explained very well by Northeastern University poli-sci professor. Take a listen.
Beto O'Rourke was able to raise over $45 million.
All out-of-state money.
Platform in his Senate race against Ted Cruz in Texas. And much of that came from outside of the state of Texas. And that's now a possibility for candidates all over the country at all levels of office.
Which he says challenges one of our core assumptions about politics, that representation is based on geography.
What right do people out of state or out of those districts have to not only be contributing to candidates in other states and districts, but also to potentially overwhelm the voices of the voters within those very districts themselves? That is a very, very legitimate question.
Terrible.
So if they're willing to pervert elections and their so-called democracy by buying elections with California and New York money in places like Texas and Georgia, what else are they capable of? And what's the real story over at Act Blue? Well, at best, it's simply so overwhelmed with all the donations that their site is making these massive clerical errors that explain 25,000 donations from one woman who didn't donate anything. And at worst, Act Blue could be breaking down massive donations from the radical left, places like George Soros and other very dangerous things, or maybe China, anywhere else, breaking them down into smaller donations, which can be funneled directly into thousands of political campaigns.
Like Biden's 20 shell companies.
We all know money wins elections. You can have a terrible platform with terrible ideas and still buy an election. All we know at this point right now is that none of this makes any sense. From the Federalist 3 years ago, months before the 2020 election, data obtained by Fox showed that almost half of all 2019 donations to Act Blue were made by people claiming to be unemployed.
Wow.
How many unemployed people do you know who give their money away?
Nobody. Nobody.
How many people do you know who donate to political causes thousands of times a year?
Nobody.
You know anybody that does that?
Nope.
On any side?
Because they don't.
Thousands of donations a year for one person? How many democratically run nations have you ever seen where political parties continue to win while having very little support for their agenda?
Well, destroying the country.
Another example from Election Watch, Wisconsin voter Mike Kay, a disabled 66-year-old 6,800 donations for a total of $97,000. How many disabled vets in 66
No.
donated $97,000 or thousands of donations? By the way, when interviewed, Mike Kay had no idea.
You see that?
So interesting to note, the Democrat Party
They're-
official
they're-
purveyor.
And tell me they don't cheat.
Regulation.
Tell me, to my
They
face.
have two things
Crooks.
that they want heavily deregulated in
Fucking
this world.
crooks.
You know what those are? Voting and fundraising.
Of course.
Marco Rubio pointing out, Act Blue does not require credit card CVV numbers as a requirement for donating,
Wow.
thus lending itself as a facilitator of fraud. One of the only places you can use a credit card on the internet without a CVV, Act Blue's website.
Wow.
A political party that wants to surveil and regulate every single thing that you do, but wants absolutely no accountability on who's voting and where their election money is coming from.
Wow.
And they do all this while assuring you that our elections have never been so secure.
This year's election was, quote, the most secure in history.
This was the most
Well-
secure election in American history.
They'll say
election to be
something,
which is
they'll
the fairest
lie.
in our history.
They all know it's true and they're lying.
Yeah.
No, we don't
Should tell you
believe
everything you need to know.
Yes.
There is at least one legitimate reason, though, why Democrats
Wasn't
are
that
so
Youngkin, though?
suspiciously overperforming right now. The Republican
Oh, no, that was
era
Joe.
on
No, it
abortion.
wasn't that.
Last year's repeal of Roe versus Wade was a monumental victory
That was
for
Morning Joe.
decency in this country and sophistication. Abortion laws here have
My bad.
been perverse and barbaric for 50 years. Unfortunately, though, the always uncoordinated Republican Party was not prepared with how to respond to the moment. If there's nothing else the party should learn from the midterms and from last night, it's that they need to coalesce around a single plan. And that plan needs to be more moderate than a heartbeat bill. Trump is moderate on abortion, signaling support for something around 12 or 15 weeks. For those in the party who are staunchly pro-life and offended by the idea of Republicans coalescing around a 12 to 15 week ban, just take a look at what happened in Ohio last night, a state that's as red as Trump's hat. The heartbeat bill was shredded there. Ohio effectively returned to Roe last night. And if it won't work in Ohio, a 6-week ban will not work anywhere. Ohio Senator J.D. Vance tweeting this today: I am as pro-life as anyone, and I want to save as many babies as possible. This is not about moral legitimacy, but political reality. I've seen dozens of good polls on the abortion question in the last few months, many of them done in Ohio. Give people a choice between abortion restrictions very early in pregnancy with exceptions or the pro-choice position, and the pro-life view has a fighting chance. That
Yeah,
is
you gotta
exactly
be-
right.
Yep.
And Republicans need to start talking
Might be
about
concerned,
abortion
can't
as
be
well,
so
which is something they hate doing.
extreme.
We had 5 different Republicans in Congress tell us tonight that they'd love to come on the show, but they don't want to talk about abortion.
Well, that's ridiculous.
They need to. They're terrified of losing the religious right on this issue.
They have to.
They have to lose that fear. The party has to get real. Last year we had a former abortion
That's right.
doctor on who explained that Roe really means full-term abortion. It's not just fetal viability. And then he described the process to us. I want to play this
Oh, it's,
one more
it's
time so you can hear
horrendous.
it.
You don't
Yeah.
know you wanna hear it.
I remember
Doe
this.
versus Wade, in conjunction with another decision the same day called Doe versus Bolton, establishes any abortion, anytime, up to birth, for any reason whatsoever. That's what Roe and Doe say. A D&E procedure is a blind abortion, so picture yourself introducing this and grabbing anything you can blindly
I've heard
and
this.
pull, and I do mean hard,
Awful.
and out pops a leg about that big, which you put down on the table next to you.
Disgusting.
Reach in again, pull
Maybe you
again,
could feel pain.
pull out an arm about the same length, which you put down on the table next to you. And use this instrument again and again to tear out the spine, the intestines, the heart and
Imagine.
lungs.
This is a baby. Awful.
Barbaric.
It is barbaric.
And the sad reality is, if you want to end that, the only way is with a moderate position. You go heartbeat, that continues on forever. It's the truth. It's a harsh reality. It is the truth nonetheless. If Republicans want to win on abortion, they also need to talk about abortion, because it's all the Democrats are going to talk about in 2024. As the New York Times put it today, Democrat officials have been saying for months that the fight for abortion rights has become the issue that best motivates Democrats to vote. and is also the issue that persuades the most Republicans to vote for Democrats. That's exactly right. And that's exactly what they're going to do. And of course that's the case. They've ruined the entire country. Abortion fear tactics is all they have. All right, Senator Ted Cruz joins us tonight. Sir, it's good to have you back on. Republicans dramatically outspent again. There is a lot of evidence to suggest that the Democrats are playing with potentially huge piles of very dirty money, and they're making every effort to deregulate fundraising, just like they've done with the voting process, to heavily deregulate that. The only things that they want to deregulate, voting and fundraising. Is there any intention in Congress, is there any willpower to investigate their money, to investigate Act Blue? There's been a lot of accusations, there's a lot of evidence here.
Yeah, look, I think it is very concerning, the mounting evidence of fraud in Act Blue, and in particular, thousands upon thousands of donations that people are saying, the individuals whose names are on it are saying they don't know, they didn't give it. And the way Act Blue collects credit cards, it doesn't include the three-digit number that is on the back of the credit card that, you know, if you buy from most websites online, they ask for that three-digit number because it's a fraud prevention tool, and yet Act Blue very deliberately doesn't ask for that.
Weird.
And it raises a risk. If this money is fraudulent, if it's not coming from the people whose names are there, where is the money coming from? And it raises a possibility of foreign money that could be flooding into Act Blue, Chinese money that could be flooding into Act Blue. If you look at China, China clearly has a vested interest in electing Democrats, because today's Democrat Party, it is functionally pro-China, and it is systemically pro-China, because the major stakeholders to whom elected Democrats are indebted, big business, big Hollywood, big universities, and big tech, they are all fundamentally pro-China. And as you know, I've got a brand new book came out yesterday called Unwoke, How to Defeat Cultural Marxism in America. And this is exactly the topic of the book, how cultural Marxists have seized every major institution of America. And the final chapter of the book is China, because I lay out China as a nexus that links all of the other institutions, and I explain why the Democrats, all of the institutions that are the Democrat stakeholders, are the ones that have been taken over by the extreme left, and every one of them are in bed with China.
Where would, I mean, if first of all, how is there not already an investigation into the largest fundraising arm of the Democratic Party if we have all of this evidence? If it's there, would that be a federal investigation? Is that a DOJ investigation? How does that work, and why has that not already started?
So it should be a federal investigation. It should be the Department of Justice. It could also be the Federal Election Commission. The problem is the Federal Election Commission has 3 Republican commissioners, 3 Democrat commissioners, and on something like this, you can anticipate a party line vote that the Democrats are not going to want to investigate it. For DOJ, the Biden DOJ has been the most partisan political Department of Justice in history. I think there is 0 chance the Biden...
Then what the hell's the sense of even having a law?
And
Or
so
that's because
by the way,
they can't do anything about it.
Senate, that any Senate committee would investigate this, because Chuck Schumer controls the Senate, and the Democrats don't want it investigated. So I'll tell you where the best hope is for a Republican Attorney General. Republican Attorneys General have the authority to investigate fraud, and I would encourage Republican Attorneys General, this merits a very serious investigation, because you are looking at hundreds of millions of dollars that are being spent to try to buy elections and move this country in the disastrous direction it's going.
They're trying to do it to you more than anybody. I mean, the Beto money that poured in, I mean, that came in from all over the country. You had California and who knows where else was electing.
Yeah, but you see, everybody has their price.
They tried to take him out.
And that was a huge exploit.
So they go to a Republican Attorney General and they say, you know what, there's hundreds of millions of dollars that are coming in. Here's 10 million cash.
In U.S. history, I was outspent 3-1. In the third quarter of 2018, I set a record for fundraising in a single quarter by a Texas Senate candidate. I raised $12 million that quarter from people going to tedcruz.org, 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 going there and contributing. My record lasted for about 2 hours. I raised $12 million. What do you think Beto O'Rourke raised the same quarter?
I can't even fathom it. How much?
$38 million.
Yeah.
And it was just a flood from Act Blue, and that is happening. I'm running for re-election right now in 2024, and we are anticipating the Democrats are going to spend more than $100 million trying to defeat me next year. Chuck Schumer's made clear I am his #1 target in the country. So the reason I gave the website 3 times is we do need resources
Trying to get rid of all the
to
conservatives,
fight back
them out.
and
Some of the
prevent
rhinos,
this massive
yeah.
flood of cash, particularly when we don't know where it's coming from.
I got to ask you one final question, because you talked a lot about it in the monologue, and that is the topic of abortion. It's not a topic that Republicans want to talk about in this country. J.D. Vance put out an op-ed today. You know, he's Ohio. We saw what happened in Ohio last night with this topic. He says we need to give people an option between heartbeat bills and the barbarism that is, you know, Roe and elective abortion all the way up until full term, basically.
Yeah, that full term.
That sounds to me like he's pitching something in the 15-week range. I really believe that this party needs to come together with something moderate here, because you can't change anything if you don't have power. And it seems pretty clear at this point that if you go far right on abortion, we're going to continue to lose. And if you lose, you can't fix anything anyway, and the abortions continue no matter what. What is your take on that?
Well, listen, after Roe versus Wade was overturned, this issue was sent back to the states. And all of us know abortion is an issue that there's a sharp division in this country. There are very different views. People of good faith can disagree on it. And it is a deeply emotional, personal, contentious issue. I think that's precisely why, under the Constitution, it's left to the voters. It should be left to the voters. And what that means is that the views of the voters vary state by state. In bright blue states, and states like California and New York, we continue to have essentially unlimited abortion on demand. In redder states, states like Texas, you have more significant restrictions that are put in place.
But if we don't coalesce, they paint all Republicans as heartbeat, as taking away the right, and we're going to get slaughtered in this next election. I just have a feeling that, maybe not slaughtered, but it's going to be just like 22 and just like last night, where like the whole country's falling apart, going to hell, and somehow Republicans are barely winning, if not losing.
Well, look, the Democrats are very good at trying to deceive voters and convincing voters. And listen, states like Virginia, where we didn't have a good result in Virginia's historically been a blue state. And in blue states, this issue has been more potent for Democrats. I think under the Constitution, recognizing federalism, that different states are going to have different laws based on the values and mores of those citizens, I think that's a way for our country to coexist and survive, and recognize that we have differing views. I'm pro-life. I believe in protecting innocent human life. But we can also recognize that different states have different approaches to this. And I think it's also worth noting that the party that is extreme on abortion is today's Democrat Party in the Senate.
Yeah, they are.
Every single Senate Democrat supports unlimited abortion on demand up until the moment of birth, the partial birth abortion with taxpayer funding and with no parental consent and no parental notification. That is an extreme position that literally 9% of Americans agree with. 91% of Americans disagree with today's Democrats, and so I think we need Republican office holders and candidates who can talk about this intelligently and reasonably.
Yeah, the messaging something's got to change. The messaging has to get stronger at the very least. Something has to change on this issue, though, because last night, another disappointment. 2022 was a huge disappointment. Senator Cruz, thank you so much. His new book, Unwoke. Sir, thank you. We appreciate your time.